What's up, everyone? So today I'm going to talk about the benefits of coconut oil, why it can be good for you, but also why maybe not too much in large amounts. So a couple things. If we look at coconut oil, about 52 to 85% of it are made up of medium chain triglycerides, or what's called medium chain fatty acids. Those are the same thing. Technically it's called fatty acids, but a lot of times they call them MCTs, medium chain triglycerides, but they're referencing medium chain fatty acids. And this is the number of lengths of carbons in the chain, okay? And what's important is how they work in the body. So we can use those triglycerides, those medium chain triglycerides or fatty acids for energy much more easily than long chain fatty acids, long or very long, okay? And for a couple reasons. One is absorption. So the way we absorb it across the membrane, I like to play with my little models here, across the membrane, when it's a smaller medium chain fatty acid, or we're eating glycerol itself, which is the backbone of the fatty acid, if we're absorbing those things, they absorb very easily. They go right across the lining of the intestinal membrane, okay? These little enterocytes, they're intestinal cells, goes right into them, goes right through them, and goes into the capillaries inside of these little finger-like structures called villi, and then it gets absorbed directly into the bloodstream, okay? The capillaries that are in there. So it's pretty quick, easy process. It's exactly how we absorb amino acids. It's exactly how we absorb monosaccharides, which are the breakdown products of carbohydrates. So it's a very easy process. When we absorb longer chain fatty acids, or even things like fat-soluble vitamins, what happens is I'm not going to get through the process now. I could do it in a different video, but there's a bunch of steps that have to take place in order to get it into the cell, unpackage it, repackage it, get it into the lymphatic system, and it's quite the detailed process. So we absorb the medium fatty acids or triglycerides much more easily. So that's one way it becomes much more readily usable for energy. The second is, because of these shorter chains, it's easier to transport it into the mitochondria, and which is where we're going to do this process of generating energy. And when we do something called beta oxidation of fatty acids, it's one of the components we need to do to get energy out of it. We break it into these little 2-carbon chains, right? So we're breaking it down. If there's less carbons, that happens a lot quicker. So there's multiple steps involved as far as the absorption, the transport, and the breakdown with the beta oxidation on how much faster we can use it. So that's why they say coconut oil gives you energy. Now, it's not a stimulant. It doesn't give you energy, but what it's doing is it's readily providing these medium chain fatty acids relatively quickly so that you can use them for energy. Now, here's another thing about using them for energy. What's really cool about fatty acids is we get a ton of energy out of it. So I teach in my class the breakdown of glucose, and we talk about how you get 32 in humans, 32 ATP from one glucose. It's not 36, it's not 38. Those numbers are incorrect. Those are overestimations of the ATP we get. The accurate numbers, according to biochemistry, would be 32. That's if everything's working perfectly, of course. So we get 32 ATP from one glucose molecule. From a fatty acid, it's going to vary depending on the chain length. But if we're going to use, so when we look at that percentage I told you in coconut oil, we've got caprylic acid, capric acid. So caprylic's 8 carbons, capric acid's 10, and then lauric acid is 12 carbons. And that's 40 to 50% of the medium chain triglycerides in the coconut oil is the lauric acid. So we'll use that one as an example. So we've got these 12 carbon chain, okay? Does all the things I just told you as far as absorption, transport, and then this beta oxidation. Well, we get 78 ATP from that one fatty acid, from that lauric acid, okay? 78. So it's a process where we get 20 of them from what's called beta oxidation, where I told you we're breaking them into the chains. We are going to go through the Krebs cycle, okay, because we're going to generate these acetyl-CoAs, which are necessary. It's like the fuel, right? I always think of it like those old slot machines where you pull the handle, right? You put in the acetyl-CoA, you can pull the handle once, and you run around the Krebs cycle one time for every acetyl-CoA. So we're going to get actually 70, is that right? No, sorry, 60 from the Krebs cycle from the lauric acid. So we got 20, and 60, that's 80. But then it costs us 2. So in order to get into the mitochondria and create something called an acyl A, which is going to get us into that process of beta oxidation, it costs us 2. So we make 80, costs us 2, we get a total of 78 ATP from that fatty acid. So fatty acids are very good sources of fuel, right? They're not sources of energy necessarily. We're going to make energy from them, but they're sources of fuel to make the energy. So that's really cool. Now, the last thing I want to say, I think this is the last thing. When you look at the spectrum of like saturated fatty acids, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, when you look at the amount of saturated fats in coconut oil compared to anything else, it is the most saturated fat on the planet. So it has more saturated fat than any other fat there is, butter, lard, any of that stuff. But again, it's because of these shorter chains that we're able to take a lot of this and use it for fuel. Now, the reason I'm mentioning about the saturated fat is coconut oil in moderate amounts is very healthy for you, but coconut oil in excessive amounts could raise your cholesterol. Now, what we see in studies is it raises, in some people, it raises total cholesterol. And some people, and then it can raise HDLs, which is known as your good cholesterol. There's no such thing as good cholesterol. It's actually a lipoprotein that contains cholesterol, and then there's LDL, which is supposedly your bad cholesterol. It's also a lipoprotein. Those are not cholesterol. There's these shuttles called lipoproteins, and the LDL transports the cholesterol to the tissues, and the HDL from the tissues. And so the LDL is the bad one, the HDL is the good one, but it can raise all three. Okay, if we ingest too much of the coconut oil. So moderate amounts, like anything else, would be wise to do. If you're looking for just good fats in general for your cholesterol levels, monounsaturated fats like your olive oil and your avocado and things like that. From what I understand, avocado oil is very processed. I'm not sure. I have to look a little more into that to see about the benefits and drawbacks. But your virgin olive oils is probably going to be your best. Your actual just full avocados. But again, those are monounsaturated, but they don't necessarily have tons of those medium chains. So when we're talking about the medium chains, the energy, the benefits of coconut oil, that kind of gives you a bunch of nerdy science stuff, but also a breakdown of why those things are healthy and how we can use them. If you have any questions, let me know. Stay strong. I'll see you next time.